Welcome to Nature Connected Life. Today we are going to talk about the disaster preparedness mindset or philosophy. So this is actually how you approach preparedness. If you haven't watched the first video, you need to go watch that. It sets the bar for what we're talking about and also what we're not talking about here. So today I want to put this into three categories. There is pre-event, there is event, and there is post-event. Pre-event, what we need to have this mindset of thinking through the possibilities beforehand and being able to make decisions ahead of time so that we don't have to make them during. Now what that looks like is looking at where you live or where you're vacationing or where you're staying, knowing the risks, what the highest risks of natural disasters or other disasters there are, and then identifying the decisions you may have to make or the things you need in order to handle those situations. So you need to know whether you're at risk for a fire, a natural fire, if you live in a wooded area or any other high-risk fire area, whether you're at risk for floods. I'm thankful I'm not at risk for floods here because I'm on a high point in my area, one of the reasons I chose where I live. Whether you have tectonic plates that could cause earthquakes under you, or whether you live near the coast. So you need to identify these things ahead of time. You need to think through where you are in any given moment. If something occurs, what are you going to do? And walking through that ahead of time will actually make the event itself much easier. So moving into the event, what we want to be thinking about is something called the OODA loop. That's OODA. It stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. Right? So it's this circular, I'll try and throw an overlay up if I can figure out how to do that on video. So observe, orient, decide, and act. So we observe what's happening. We have to orientate and put ourselves into the situation. Then we need to decide what we are actually going to do. And then we need to put that decision into action. And then it repeats itself over and over. The faster you can make it through this loop, the more successful you will be with dealing with whatever the event is. So that's why the pre-event mindset is so important. We need to think through these things ahead of time so that on that decision step, that is the quickest step for us to go through, because we've already made this decision 3 months ago. Once we observe that the fire is happening, 3 months ago, I prepared a bag that I can grab and walk out the front door with, right? I already know what I need to do. So that part is easy, and the acting is then just carrying that out. So there is part of that mindset of being actually prepared to do what needs to be done, having the fortitude, the mental fortitude to get that done. And then moving into post-event, right? So you've dealt with whatever it is, whether that's a fire, a flood, a tornado, maybe it's just affected you, maybe it's affected the whole community. You need to think about how you're going to handle the future, right? For small events, you may only have to think a month out, as you maybe need a hotel to stay in while your house fire is remediated. Maybe it's much longer than that. Maybe you need a family member to stay with somewhere else because your entire lot was leveled and it's not even going to be able to be moved back into for quite some time because it needs to be bulldozed or because toxic chemicals spilled somewhere nearby, right? Maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, something like that. Maybe you need to think about what renting an apartment looks like, right? So there's this future thought. And in that, you need a support system as well, right? Doing this by yourself is maybe possible, but it's not the ideal situation. We talk so much about pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Well, okay, that's great, but wouldn't it be better if you could do it in a shorter amount of time, be happier about it, be more successful, and just make it easier on yourself with less stress? Okay, great. Get a support system. So friends, family, church. What does that look like for you? Have a support system in place so that you can deal with this in the long term. Okay, so that's the prepper mindset and philosophy. Hopefully you understand what I'm getting at there. Next up, we're going to be talking about actual reactions to an event. So bugging in and bugging out are the main categories there. Maybe those have some negative connotations with them as well. Don't think about this as a mass scale event, right? You need to think about bugging out just as being walking out your front door and getting to somewhere that is safe. That might be just outside the front door because your house is on fire. So join us next time as we jump into that topic and explore a little bit more. We'll have a ton of other videos in this series. I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. This is Nature Connected Life.